Monetization journey week 2. I had some really big ahas this week that are giving me renewed momentum. And even though this is only week 2 of me tracking, this is about 6 months of me experimenting and playing around. These ahas that are more than a strategy and more than my metrics. I realized not understanding some of these things, they didn't necessarily keep me from creating content and creating videos, but I noticed that there was just a little in my momentum, right? There was some internal slogging. Hello, dogs barking, wind blowing. This is what we got today. It's like a joke getting this set up today. You ever feel like that? None of the technology is working. All the batteries are dead. And I broke the USB-C adapter to my lavalier mic. But we're going to do this anyway. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into these and then I'll get to my stats. Well, I'll start with my stats. Last week was 374 subscribers and 37 hours of watch time, 4,000 views. This week, at the beginning of the week, we're at the end now, so I'll update that next week. But at the beginning of the week, this week, 382 subs, 5,000 views, and 49 hours of watch time as of Monday. I'm recording this on a Friday. I'm getting momentum, and so I want to share this with you all. The first piece, on my feed, probably like yours, is a lot of these videos of like how to grow your YouTube channel fast and how to make money and all these things. I do get excited and like those tools and those tips and tricks. And I felt like I was spinning in circles a little bit. I have been doing what's called cognitive play, where you kind of play to learn, right? So you take action to learn. That's important. But these things were big this week for me that gave me a lot of clarity and momentum. And so we will be editing the FUCK out of all that babbling. The first one is the mindset and identity. So last week I talked about the difference between interested and committed, and I became committed after just being interested and playing around in the shallow end for a while. And I'm definitely committed now. But the next piece I realized was my identity. For me, the word identity is the beliefs I have about myself, the picture I have of myself, what I believe to be true from the inside out of who I am. And I realized that I didn't see myself as a content creator, right? I had this sounds so cheesy to say as a coach, and it's true. Sometimes we have limiting beliefs, and I had a lot of limiting beliefs. And then I have a lot of both my past successes and my past failures that I'm kind of lugging around behind me in baggage. I realized I didn't necessarily have a clear vision. And sometimes when we're brand new, so over the years, I've worked with a lot of new business owners. And when I was brand new, after leaving corporate and coming to start my own coaching practice, I had such a clear vision. And this midlife, in the context of midlife and now ADD and autism diagnosis and just how the whole world has tumbled upside down in the last few years, the context has changed. But there's all this past experience. So in the beginning, it was easy to have a clear vision. And now, right now, today, and especially in the last few weeks, my vision about where I'm going with my life and my business and what do I want to do and what do I want to create has been pretty vague and not crystal clear. In the past, I would be so clear that I would be doing what I call bet on yourself. I was betting on myself and investing in myself because I knew that things would work. And I feel like I've just been in this midlife meandering, wandering. What I did know was that I have 3 pillars in my business that I want to build, and one of these is very intentionally monetizing on YouTube. I had to, first of all, be able to see myself as being able to do that, as that happening for me. It's what do I believe about myself? What do I believe about my content? And what do I believe about my audience that gives me the juju to keep going? Because as you already know, this is a lot of work. This is a lot more work than I'm used to. I've been thinking about you all week and sharing these things. But right, that's an internal thing. Now, it doesn't mean you can't make videos before you have that figured out. In fact, I think making videos and sometimes re-editing old live streams that I have that I think are really good content, they just needed to be edited. Yeah. And clearly it's not completely clear, but now I can see, oh, what is the vision of the woman who has monetized her YouTube, who has built an engaged following and community and audience here, who gives videos that her audience finds valuable, helpful, authentic, relatable, all these things. And that also supports my business, both by the monetization and honestly by the few of you out there that will want to go, hey, I want to work with this lady. And I had some pretty big gaps to fill in that aspect there, and they're still forming, but now I can see that my core identity has some updating to do. The second thing is, as you already know, there is so much advice out here on the interwebs about how to grow your channel, what to do, what not to do. And where I was bumping up is some of the preconceived notions that I have, that I think maybe you have too, that we can often do, like we're comparing our insides to other people's outsides. And one of the things, after creating content mostly off the cuff with very little planning, like creating from inspiration, and I want to still create from inspiration. I think that has been a core foundation and pillar of having a successful business over the last 15 years, 20 years coaching, but 15 years in the online space. But what I do see is that it's time for me to refine my skills, right? So imagine going to a doctor that's been doing doctoring for a long time, but they're not up to date on recent techniques and things like that. And for many years, I felt like I was above the curve with technology. I was a secret little technology geek. And then somewhere in the last 4 or 5 years, I felt like I couldn't keep up. And that was just because midlife had other things that needed my attention. Dad having a stroke while mom was in the car and selling their house of 52 years, and my own personal health required more attention than me researching the latest, greatest in technology and social media strategy. Allison, come on. I've had to be willing to learn new things. Well, that works out for me because I actually get a lot of energy from learning new things. Learning how to edit with Descript and learning how to experiment and play with vidIQ and the AI that those tools. So I don't want AI to create my content, but I feel like AI is the difference maker for me now that I didn't have before, that helps me produce and finish, because I'm not a very good finisher. Hi, my name is Allison. I have ADD and autism, and I am very inspirational and like to take action quickly. On one hand, I was hearing somebody say, this is how I make one video a week. Listen, on Monday, I was editing a video and I messaged my podcast producer and I was like, hey, we're going to have a podcast this weekend, because that's how I roll. It's not every weekend. And 2 or 3 times, she was in the middle of Hurricane Milton, so I didn't bug her about it, but I've been doing various other things in my business. And she texted me this morning. It's like, everything's okay here in Florida. Did you send the video? I got a new phone, so I might have missed it. And I was like, no, I totally forgot about it. That's, kind of how it was an extra project, whereas YouTube is my main project. That's how my brain works sometimes. What's in the moment? And I cannot make myself be what you might be or what somebody else might be. So one of the things I'm having to do is figure out my systems and my patterns for not only how I'm going to do this, what my processes are on my computer and editing and what tools I use, like what's my rhythm. And I have found out over the years, being married to my husband and his personality, is that like he's always saying, I've got a system for that. And Elizabeth Warren is like that. I've got a plan for that. And I have become honestly this wild and spontaneous and free person which is great when you have tons of energy and you're in your 20s, but when you're in your 50s and for the last 10 years, like I needed systems and I do better with systems. I've been experimenting for what are my systems. There's so much advice, being willing to refine my skills and what is my way. One of the things I was thinking, I have all this, not archived, but I want to say Allison 1.0 content since 2010. And a lot of it is actually like I go and I listen, I'm like, oh, that's really good. And I have a whole bunch of video podcasts where I live stream the video, but there's all that filler stuff in there. So sometimes I've been taking those podcasts and that video. That's why you'll see me having all different kinds of hair and all different kinds of glasses. That's just part of me. And I have been, I don't even want to say repurposing it, but something I never did before is really trying to edit it down and create pieces from that. I promise you, I'm only picking things that still feel really relevant and juicy to me, right? But there is a lot of good in my past. This is part of the mindset too. I can't just take the past and bring it here now. It's like when you move. My husband and I have moved a whole bunch of times. We like to move. I think we're staying here. But we moved 4 times in 7 years. And one of the things we do is let's take what's working with us and let's release the stuff, right? I don't want to have the accumulation of stuff that some of my parents did. Release the stuff that we don't need and move on. I'm figuring out, what do I need to release? What am I holding on to that's like a little security blanket? And then what of those things, especially that I'm a little emotionally attached to, do I need to release completely? And then what do I need to like take out of the closet and dust off? And I'm over here using my hand moments and noticing that little fidgeting thing. It's okay, Allison. That's okay, fidgeter. I love you. Okay. So one of the things that I do, and I'm kind of doing in these, I do have, the wind is blowing my notes. It is what it is. I went to go use my gimbal. I was like, I'm going to do a walk and talk and take my little note card that I thought out really well. And best laid plans, I went to do that. And the gimbal was out of battery and wouldn't turn on. So I got that charging. And then I went to go use my lavalier mic. Tip, don't put it in your pocket and sit down because you'll break the USB-C. Yeah. So we're doing what we can. So here's what I'm really good at. Other than my skill of coaching, which I'm fucking brilliant at. But as far as making content, I'm really good at what they call trust building content. Someone yesterday commented and it made me feel really good. They're like, oh, thank you for sharing. It helps me sharing my behind the scenes. And I built a business on that sage, wise advice, human, authentic. I was being authentic before anybody thought it was cool to be authentic. And here's what's going on behind the scenes. That's actually one of the big stories in my professional, like it's one of the huge stories of sharing something that nobody shares on public. And it propelled me. I didn't go viral, but it propelled me to a platform, so to speak. I can do trust building content all day long, but I realized I needed to strategically use playlist in my own mind, to organize in my mind the playlist of monetizing and tracking this process and journey. And then I want to give myself a playlist of Allison's verbal processing again. Because a lot of my ideal audience is undiagnosed ADD and autism. And as my former client Rebecca said to me one time, I should be speaking in 3 bullet points and be really concise. And I know there's a lot of people out there that need that, but you can move on to the next channel, honey, because it ain't me. My client Rebecca looked at me in the face because I was feeling some of that insecurity about not being concise. And she was like, I follow your circles perfectly. And that helped me realize, and I need to remember it again today, that my people, the people that my content is for, is not just based on this client avatar, but it's also, sometimes I listen to a podcast and I want to hear the content, but the tone of the voice is just not for me. It's nothing personal, right? And so I say "and so" a lot. Those will probably get edited out now that I have Descript. I love that thing. The slowing down and breathing. We'll keep that in. And what if I trust my audience to do what they want to do as far as listening, right? I don't want to do the monkey dance for your treats. I don't want to be up here like a little puppet. I want to both be me, and that includes some behind the scenes and verbal processing content, which I think can be very helpful if you can endure all my extra fluff. And then some like professional content, some of my credibility and expertise and the things that I know about. I've decided to create a playlist for verbal processing. When I did that, my whole, what I call my internal system, so my internal system is my core self and all parts of me. I come from an internal family systems framework. Some of the parts that were anxious, like, oh, you have to be all, I call it pantyhose Allison, like you have to be professional Allison. And I have some old stories from not fitting in. This is the autistic context, is like from not fitting in corporate. And I didn't understand when I was in my 20s why I didn't fit in, because I didn't know I was autistic. And now I go, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense why you pushed their buttons and they pushed your buttons, and how I've been able to build this successful business for all these years after. It's not just I'm going to do it my way as a rebel and a middle finger to everybody else, but there is a finesse to what are some best practices that work for me. Not all best practices will work for me, but what are some best practices that will work and still allow me to be me? Yes, I can increase my what we call authority content. I can increase my expertise content, and I don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is some of this. Allison is verbal processing again, but people get to get their own insights from that, which they do and have, and it has helped me have a very sustainable coaching practice, multiple six figures for the last 20 years. One of the things I do is in those verbal processing, that helps people see that someone with a version of success that they might like also struggles with some things. It's not just about whining, but you'll hear me working through some of the things that many of my people work through. What we have found is we work through those in private, and we tend to think that because nobody is putting that out polished in the world, that something is wrong with us. And I think that is I now know that is a very common part of the undiagnosed ADHD and autism experience for especially women. Maybe men, but I don't know. I'm not a man. Okay. I've been experimenting. I'm past the experimenting page with Descript and vidIQ. Earlier this summer, I experimented with both of those and just gave myself permission to play and learn and play and learn. And I've been learning more, and I'm starting to understand thumbnails and keywords and things that I would never have given the time of day before. Like, I just didn't have time for that. It's clicking in. I have been a business coach for 20 years. And there are pieces of a traditional business framework that I got from a cognitive place, but I didn't really get, that are like, they're finally clicking in. I think that has to do with me and my maturity. I don't know. Anyways, all these things, what it's done for me, and I don't want to ever give the impression that you have to have this before you start. But when you start, and as you're out here cognitive play and experimenting, be on the lookout for the scent, the morsels. And I know this time around, it is not, I cannot go, I'm going to sit down and do visioning work. And what's my plan? And, going to Barnes and Noble and getting a bunch of magazines and creating a vision board ain't going to cut it this time. I think this is a midlife thing. Like, this is cooking with shit that is in your pantry, and you might need to go get a few new things, but you also don't have a recipe, and it just takes some experimentation. Anyway, I had to have, and this was strange for me because I haven't had it in the last couple of years, in this like dip in my business because I had to put so much energy into my family health, my personal health, my family health, my personal health. So my business revenue has frankly tanked. And thank God for savings. As I rebloom my business, I'm not stepping back into what was. And I think for a while I was trying to do that and I couldn't figure out like, why is it like I outgrew that bicycle. We're upgrading from the banana seat to like something a little bit more aligned for me. I am in the process of developing not just a vision. Vision for me is not about how big or small it is, but the vision to be compelling. For me, the word compelling means it is intrinsically and internally motivating for me. And it's easy to accidentally, especially when you have a neurodivergent nervous system, it's easy to pick up on other people's vibes and accidentally pick up other people's visions for you or things you see other people doing really well. But to really hone in and listen and write down and journal about, and this is all piecemealed, but my overall vision. Last week, I was willing to start tracking before I got ready. This summer, I was willing to start making videos and experimenting before I got ready. And this week, all of a sudden, dropped into my belly is like, even though this isn't making money right now, my brain is like, you should be out there in your regular places, in your email list and on Facebook and offering coaching. Like you should be offering coaching sessions. And I'm over here spending all this time learning something new and then figuring out how it works with what I'm really good at. And this week, like my belly feels full of the compelling vision. It's not crystal clear yet, but it's enough where I feel grounded in my hips and good. Yeah. So that's my thing. Let me know what questions you have. Listen, I thrive off questions. If you have questions, whether it's about this monetization stuff or whether it's about content you want to see, my system and the way I work, I actually respond really well when I have an audience. That was something else I wrote in my journal this week is make videos for them. I want to make videos for you. So feel free to request topics or give me a situation and I'll speak on it. I have lots of opinions and wisdom and knowledge and expertise. And then sometimes I can make videos for me that by letting you watch, you'll get something too. Peace out. Thanks for being here. Subscribe. Comment. Let's do this.